G'day YouTube, welcome back to my channel Bonsai Works. Today I've got a couple of black pines here that belong to a client. I've got this upright one and I've got this cascade one down here. Now these belong to a customer of mine and he wants me to do some work on it. Probably is good timing because I get asked a lot about young pines and what to do with the young pines. Even though these are a little bit big, not seedlings as such and not really young, but they're quite small and skinny, but they've also got some movement and shape and starting to develop. But they've got lots of growth. And what do you do in this instance? And how do you treat a younger tree? Not the mature stuff that I've been showing you where you just wire out and do bud selection and candle cutting, things like that. This is more designing and actually working through the issues with the tree to set it up for a better future. Now, what we're going to talk about, probably the good thing with this tree is there's 3 branches on it. One here, the apex, and one towards the back. Now, the best thing with this is there's no bar branching in that sense. You got a bit of a dead bit here, which you cut off, the owner cut off, which is good. And now he's trying to design it and sculpt it in a certain way. It's not a bad little tree. It's got some interesting features. It's got a bit of deadwood here on this side of the tree. The bar you can't really see much unless we start to pull back some of the soil. So, it's one of those things where we can design a tree out of it, but also talk about what are the issues that are with young trees and how to avoid them, especially at this stage. You want to try and start to avoid any of the main issues with black pines, which are whorls. Whorls are the worst thing you can have on a black pine at a young stage, because what they'll do is, a whorl is where at one point, which is good, this tree doesn't have that. Imagine at this point here, you got 1 branch, 2 branch, and this would have been the 3rd branch. If you let that grow, and maybe another branch here would have been there, another branch here at the same point, there would have been 5 or 6 branches in this spot that would have really thickened up right here and made a really big, huge knob in that point there. That creates reverse taper. What that means is this part is thicker than the part below. We don't want that. We want to have a thick tree, a thicker tree and tapering off into a nice smaller top. Now, I don't know where we're going to go with this tree at the moment, but I'll look at design and so on, but I really want to talk about that issue in this tree. So when I'm styling it, I will be focusing on making sure none of that appears anywhere. So no perfect example is this point here. I'll just show you this before we start working on the tree. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, possibly 5 in there, all in the same spot, right at the tip. We can't have that. We want to have only 2. Now, at this stage, what I do is I cut back the strongest and keep the more weaker, because it's a good time now. It's winter still here in Melbourne, and it's a good time to cut those back and just leave the smaller ones, because they'll elongate in spring and be a much smaller branch. We don't want this huge growth here just for now. It's not useful. We've got a bit of back budding as well, so we'll hopefully encourage that back bud by cutting the heavier ones back, things like that I'll be looking for. But let's look at first I've got to figure out a style for this tree and what we can design with it. All right, what I'm thinking with this tree, I know there's a nice slant in this tree this way, but I think I might want to stand it up a little bit more, just so it doesn't feel like it's falling over. At the moment, this tree feels like it's just falling over into this shape, and then the trunk's coming back this way, which the best thing with this is it's very flexible, so I can do anything I want really to it in the branching. But I think by standing it up a little bit more, gives them a bit more strength. And then I can actually put this branch perfectly here in the first position, I guess. I have this one always. I'm going to put that at the back, twist it right up and make it small. But the beauty is I'll be able to work this right around and drop this branch into a secondary kind of branch and then create an apex out of it. I'm going to eliminate the parts that are multiple in one spot, which is probably the more important thing, especially if you're beginning out to understand. So really, in this case, you can start anywhere on the tree because you're just removing back to the two in every spot. But I'll just start with this one because it's very obvious. I'm just going to make sure you guys can see that pretty clear. I'm just going to try and zoom in here so you can see it. So in this point here, this is a lovely branch. Well, it's a branch that's got a little bit of a bud there, which I told you about. And then it's got, I believe I can see there's so many probably in the one spot. There's 2 small ones, 3 small ones, 4 small ones actually, and almost 4 big ones. There's probably 8 in that spot. So let's just slowly eliminate I just cut them right back at the base. You don't need these. They're not gonna produce what you need. They're just going to be a big wound there and a big whirl of a knot, and not going to be any good. But I'm going to go back all the way back to 2. So I'm going to keep going, getting rid of these big ones because they're not worth it. They're not required. I'm taking it slow, so hopefully you can see what I'm doing. All right, so I've gotten rid of all the big ones. Now I'm left with actually 1, 2, 3, I think a 4 or 5 in the same spot. It's amazing in one spot how much there could be. I'm just going to eliminate anything going this down one. We don't want anything down. And now it's pretty much, I pick the 2 kind of going outwards. Now, this isn't a bad branch that I've actually can see right here. I'm just going to have a double check what I'm seeing. Yeah, so unfortunately there's 4 or 5 still in the one spot. So there's one that's going down. I'm just going to eliminate that. You can almost pick it out with your hands. All right, now I'm left with pretty much 4 like this. It's hard to show you, but I'm going to show you with my fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4. What I normally do is leave those 2. And that's my plan here. I'm going to leave those 2 to elongate and get bigger and stronger. So that's what my plan is for this tree. And it's the health of the tree we want to talk about. So the middle ones, there's actually even more. There's so many in one spot. But we're back to 2. Okay. Well, there's even another one down there. Crazy. It really is. That's now back to proper 2 by 2, as we call it in bonsai, back to the 2, 2, 2, 2. Now what happens is also we've removed all that energy here and we've got a bud back here. So hopefully it encourages that to even grow. So we're going to have a nice sub branch in here eventually in the future. So you can see there's not much left on the tree now once I do that. It's easier to wire, of course. But we have to do that process because there's no point having all that growth that's wasted. Now I'm going to go through, that was a really good example. Now I'm going to zoom back out and hopefully we'll just go through the rest of the tree in that fashion. We've got a nice branch here, goes this way. Then we've got a nice branch that's forked out there. We've got these little ones here right at the corner there. There's not much point having those, unfortunately. So I'm going to get rid of those. They're not worth having because they're at the junction point, which will just, if they can get bigger, that whole point gets really fat. Now we're back to 2. So you can see it's nice and clear. 1, 2, no swelling, which is good. We've got a couple of buds in here, which is we'll just leave. And then we'll work our way through the rest of the tree. I'll work my way up this. I've got 4 there. I've got 2 on the side. So I'm going to cut back everything. I'll cut the middle one out, which is the biggest. Cut the one that's going down out. So now we're back to 2. And now you can see it's a bit of a mess of needles. So now it's about balancing. So removing some of these needles to balance the tree, because I want the same kind of energy throughout the whole tree so that the tree roots, so the roots on this pine feed the tree evenly all the way through. So the roots will go, okay, I've got all these needles on that one, I'm going to feed that one the most. So that's why you sometimes at the top of the tree it's so vigorous while the bottom of the tree is weaker, because the top gets so much energy because it's got so much needles. So by balancing out the needles, I'm just trying to show you how you guys can see that. Balancing out all the needles, trying to make it look a bit more even. I won't get perfectly close to that. That's a bit too small. But by lessening them, trying to encourage the tree to feed the whole foliage the same amount. So we reduce needles. Now here's a really interesting one whilst I work through it. Now I've got 2 small ones on the inside right down here, and then there's a huge one out here. For the future of the tree, the 2 small ones are better. So I'm going to cut that off. Okay. Think about future design. So this is young material. This is what you want to do with young material. You don't want to have huge branches that are going to be nothing in the future. You want to actually have nice growth. Even in the future with this branch, these 2 buds here I've left because I probably want to eventually cut that right back next season to these 2 here. But I'm not going to do that now because I want to give the tree the best chance to survive and so on. I need to give it enough energy. So I'm just plucking the old needles off, the big old from 2 years ago, probably these look like. back to here. So I've got a small one, a medium one, and a big one. So I'm going to take the big one out. And just like before, there you go. It'll pluck the more vigorous one. So it's more balanced. So now this branch is really nicely balanced. And we can wire that out quite nicely. As I said, probably the only other change I would do in the future is remove this branch back here, back to these two nice little buds in here where my finger's pointing. So that's what I would do throughout the whole tree. So when we finish, there's not going to be much left on this tree. But what will happen is it's winter right now and coming into spring. So what will happen is these will all explode in the spring. And we'll have much nicer tree. We'll have back bunning probably as well. So really good signs for the health of the tree. So I'm going to keep working on that, and we'll come back and I'll put some wire on it and we'll design the tree. Okay, so if you've got a keen eye, you would notice that I've actually changed the planting angle of this tree. The tree wasn't tied in, so it was easy for me to get underneath, pull the tree up a little bit and get soil underneath that area. It's almost like a slip potting, if you know what slip potting is, to be able to reposition a tree. I've wired the branches that I'm going to keep. You can probably see the ones that I'm not going to keep, and I'm going to show you how I eliminate those and the reasons why. So I have reduced the foliage quite a lot by removing the main ones as I showed you before. Now it's a matter of positioning and rearranging this tree to be a nice a bonsai. So firstly, we'll work on the lowest branch. I'll try and keep my hand out of the way while I maneuver this branch. I'm trying to bring it more round to the front, drop it quite down. It's going to be pretty easy because pines are very, very flexible, especially at this age. So as I said, this branch here, as I mentioned, there's two buds here that eventually, hopefully in the future, we can cut back to. So I'm just going to position this one lightly towards kind of the back of the tree. I'm putting movement into the branch as I wire it as well, because I want the tree has movement, so the branches should also have movement. Can't really have straight branches, it doesn't make sense. So this is quite a nice branch now, sweeping right down, creating a nice little padded area. This is a little bit long, but there's not much I can do until these two buds come up. So this has got a nice branch in here and breaks off into two there. So 1, 2, 3. So nice position of that first bit. That one, yeah, we've got two little ones here, which we'll come back to in the future. So what I've got now is this back branch that was kind of sitting. It was actually sitting all the way out here. So with wiring, I've been able to push it back. Now the problem with it, you can see how long it is. It's quite a long branch. So what I really need to do is reduce the width of it by pushing it back and then bringing it forward more. And I'll show you how I'm going to do that. I'll put it back to the front. So I've been able to bend it this way enough. Now it's time to go back the other way. Now kind of hold it in position and bring this bit around now. Just do it slowly. It takes time, but we'll get there. So slowly bringing it back around and down. What I've also done is wide the branches that I'm going to keep. So wide this one, which I will help maneuver more as well, more towards in closer to the tree. Okay, now I haven't wired this one because it kind of goes back in on itself, and there's 3 in one spot in here. So there's 1, 2, 3. So I've decided I want to eliminate that one because it kind of doesn't look right, not flowing in the right direction. So I'm going to take that off. Then I'm going to put this one back down. Press it down, hopefully, and get that back down. Quite flexible, so you can see how flexible they are. Just got to get the top part down a bit more and around again. So just take your time with this bit, get things right. I might even use a guide wire to pull that right back. So we'll see how I go. At the moment, it's going pretty well. Beauty of pines is very flexible at this age. So that's pretty good there. I'll leave it there for now, but I'll work on this a bit more, getting it a bit flatter. So you can see I've flattened that quite a lot now. Much better, much more flatter. And bringing it around, so I've got actual, looks like I've got side branches as well as back branches now. So I've got a bit of a side branch poking out itself now. Now this is the last bit really, the main trunk. So you can see this one is pretty important, this branch. I want to try and, I'll have to, but firstly what I want to really do is try and get this compact, the big one. Now there's 1, 2, 3 in the top. Now you can see which one I haven't wired. I haven't wired the top one, which is straight and ugly. So you know I'm going to get rid of that. So I'll do that now because I've wired the other two. Now, whatever happens, I can't use it. So regardless of what I try and do with these ones, I really can't use it. But people will chop it right now, which I was going to, but don't do it just yet, because if you have any issues, break a branch, etc., you can wire this one to create a new one. So let's firstly get this in position. Now I'm trying to go back because I want to shorten the tree's height. I don't want such a tall tree. I want to try and bring it back to a smaller tree. Now bring it around, hoping to actually kind of turn this one a bit more to the side. So it's going really well. Then I've got this branch that will come, very important one here, to drop into this position. So compacted the growth of the tree. It's nice and lower. So then this one comes in. Hopefully we can bend this around a bit more into a position in here. Now it's a much more interesting tree. So we've got all the structure kind of starting to happen. So if you can see that, that's there. That's quite nice there. That'll fill out. And this one will eventually be better as well, with a little back branch and back bud in there. So it's important to have that. Now this is the tricky bit where I'm going to avoid that and I'm going to try and bring this around. Now the beauty of this branch, it's got the 1, 2, 3. It's got 3 small branches. So we can almost create a little new apex with it. And that's the plan here. So I'm at a point where here I'm trying to create some sort of new apex. So that could be a nice little side branch in here. I've got to probably bring it forward. So that means I really need to get room. So I'm going to have to take the risk and take that off here. And I'm left with a nice little new tree. Sometimes pines you have to cut back quite excessively to get good growth. So what I've done now is almost created obviously brand new top. Okay, so I haven't finished setting it up, but this is like a small branch on the right, my right. This one will probably be small to the left and maybe slightly backwards to the back to fill in the gap back there. My arm's probably in the way, I'm sorry. And now we've got a kind of a new apex which will turn in here and try and create something in the future that will bud and become a nice top. So I'm just going to try and bring it a bit more forward. So now this tree has a much brighter future than what it was before. You can see the structure of it now quite nicely. I will tweak it a little bit more, needs a bit more tweaking here and there. Once I get off camera, I can have a closer look, but you can see the structure. All right, so I've actually decided to stop the video at this point. I will leave the other cascading pine for another video because this one's run long enough and you've got lots of info on this video. And I'll do another interesting video with that cascading one, something a bit different. So look forward to that. I'll see you guys next time and hope you enjoyed this video. Take care. Bye.